Yo guys, Andrew here with Verb. So my wife and I always joke about how our toddlers have way too much energy after only having eaten something like 2 Cheez-Its and like a couple strawberries, right? How can they run a non-stop engine with such little food intake? And the more we joked about it, the more I started to realize I actually want to know why that is. So I reached out to some experts who educate on feeding your littles, and they actually run a course called Feeding Littles. Megan and Judy, do you mind introducing yourselves?
Hey, sure. Hi, I'm Judy Delaware. I'm an occupational therapist and feeding specialist, and I work with kids and help them learn to eat.
Hi, I'm Megan McNamee, and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I specialize in maternal child nutrition and eating disorder prevention.
I gotta say, Feeding Littles really is a great course. I bought it for myself a while back, and I've plugged it on this channel a couple of times. It's a great course if you find feeding to be a pretty stressful part in your life. And by the way, if you want, you can use this code right here, DadVerb, for $10 off. So the main question that I had for you both is, how can kids eat so little and be picky about their food intake, aka right, their energy source, but still have enough energy to run us down?
So we're going to kind of address this as a 2-part answer, because there's kind of some of the nutritional components, and then Judy is going to speak a little bit more about development and just kind of why they become resistant to food. But there was actually a study released in 2018 that showed that, I'm looking at it right now to make sure I don't flub what it says. Toddlers have the same amount of endurance as like world-class endurance athletes. Toddlers literally have the ability to resist muscle fatigue and have the same energy that elite athletes have. And the why, I don't know if we know why, right? That's how they're wired in that way. But if it seems like your kid can just go, that's how they're made.
That is wild to me. That's crazy. So like, as parents, we struggle to keep up with them, but it seems like that's just their wiring, huh?
Right. No, and I mean, they do get a lot more sleep than us. They do require a ton more sleep than we do. Thank God, right? We get some breaks. But they also, nutritionally, I think, before Judy talks about the developmental component, I think nutritionally, we forget that they're getting a lot of calories throughout the day through snacking and even through milk. And a toddler's needs, depending on how big they are only 600 to 1,200 calories. And we wouldn't recommend that a person counts their calories unless obviously needed for medical reasons. But in general, kids are able to meet their growth needs and their energy needs through the foods that they're eating and if they're drinking milk. And I think people kind of underestimate that. They overestimate how much a child really needs, and they think that they're not getting enough. But if they're growing on their curve and they have good diaper output, then they're usually meeting their growth needs, even though it seems like they're existing on blueberries one day and cheese the next day.
So on that note, that's interesting, because we give our kids a wide variety of food on their plate, right? And sometimes they just eat like the berries, and other times they eat it all. But regardless of what they eat, it doesn't really matter sometimes, because it just feels like they always have the same amount of energy.
So let's break it down even another step. So remember, when your child is pretty young, and I mean under the age of 9 months, they should be willing to do anything. They're willing to play with you. They're willing to eat whatever you put in front of them. And then right around 10 to 12 months, guess what developmentally happens? They learn to become resistant. It is part of like our tools when we evaluate children at between 12 and 15 months. If they are not resisting a routine or resisting what the parents want to do, we're kind of like, are they moving along? Are they hitting all their developmental milestones? So they are completely built to resist at that age. And if they get into that routine of resist, and we get into the routine of, too much pressure, not knowing how to grade the pressure, how to take it down so there's not so much fear, worry, and anxiety, we get into this big war with the kid, and that can really cause some issues. The other thing you have to remember is their bodies are so much more efficient at that age than ours. How things work in them, it happens at a very different pace than we're accustomed to. So efficiency is also a developmental stage. So kind of got to keep in mind what's normal.
So a lot of times it seems like toddlers will exist on air alone. And I don't want to imply that like kids just don't need to eat, because that's obviously a concern long term if our child's growth is stalling, if they're not growing on their own growth trajectory, or if your doctor's noticing any concerns about deficiencies. Obviously that's something we want to address, but it is extremely normal and expected for a toddler to eat, to get to a point where they suddenly don't like the foods that they used to like before. They're suddenly really food neophobic or fearful of new things, and they want to resist because they're seeking that independence. They don't have a lot of control, kind of speaking to what Judy says. Sometimes we say it as they don't have a lot of control over their schedule and their day. To them, it seems arbitrary. Like, why am I going here for a nap? I'm not tired. I'm having fun with my toys. Like, why do I need to go down? I don't want to do that. But they do have control over what goes in their mouth. And one of the big messages that we teach in our courses and on, all over our platforms is the more we push them and force them, because we're worried, right? The more they're going to push back harder. And it totally backfires on us, which is really annoying.
You have to ask the question, whose idea was it to eat? Who suggested that this is the time for them? And do we really watch their cues? Right. I mean, everything Megan just said, there's so much to eating. And when eating goes really well and your kids are eating easily and they eat everything you put in front of them, you don't think twice about it. But when there's resistance and when you're worried, it becomes more of a challenge. And then you have it on your plate that you're worried about things. And that's when kids can feel that. Kids can read our emotions. So I think that's really important to pay attention to. Whose idea was it to eat right now?
Right. Well, I think we're just going to go ahead and stop right there. When it comes to the whole conversation around like eating and toddlers, we've barely even scratched the surface, guys. If you want to dive more into any of this, go check out feedinglittles.com. And again, you can use the code DADVERB for $10 off any of their courses. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button down there. It looks like a thumbs up. For more videos and reviews for new parents, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching this video and come back for the next one. God bless. Later.